Good morning, brethren. I'm here today to talk about the term Japa, which is our local parlance for immigration, basically. Immigration basically is the process through which individuals become permanent residents or citizens of another country, right? It's not really, immigration it's not a new concept. Immigration is as old as man. And it's not, in the Bible, in Genesis 12:1, we remember where God instructed Abraham to leave his country and his people into a new country that he will give to him. So it's really not new, and it's not common to Nigeria. Immigration is as old as man, like I said. For those of us who are quite familiar with history, we remember the 18th and 19th century history when a lot of Europeans left Europe for America, right? And in the peak of the European immigration crisis, 650,000 Europeans left Europe on a yearly basis to America. And now the reason is basically worsening economic crisis or conditions in one country motivates people to leave to another country with better economic opportunities. So, it's happened throughout history, right? So it's been like that. A lot of South Americans leave South America to the US and North America. And it hasn't always been like this, and it won't always be like this, particularly in Nigeria. I remember when my father used to tell me that it was more difficult to go to a Nigerian university. It was easier to go to school abroad than it was to enter a Nigerian university. And so in the 70s, Nigeria was like one of the countries with the most prospects in the world. And so we had a lot of Indians coming to Nigeria. Most of us had Indian lecturers who were science teachers and all of that. They came to Nigeria. There was a time when a lot of Ghanaians left Ghana and came to Nigeria. That's where the concept of Ghana must go came from. So it hasn't always been like this. And it won't always be like this. But at the moment, here we are. Worsening economic crisis at home is motivating a lot of people to leave. But the truth is, there are certain things we must take into consideration before you jump into that plane and leave. Because you see, the truth is, you're leaving behind so many years of history. You're leaving behind so many history of social capital. You see, we may not realize how important these things are. So you go to school in a particular country, you went to nursery, primary, university in one country, you worked in that country, you met people, you know people. So when you have issues, you can easily pick up your phone, call someone, and you get things done. I was telling a friend of mine the other day, many of us are maybe a phone call away or 2 phone calls away from the president, and that's the truth. Or you're just a phone call away or 2 phone calls away from the governor. Either you know the governor directly or you know someone who knows the governor. So you have an issue, you pick your phone, you make that call, and for some issues, it gets resolved, right? So you're going to leave all of that behind. Go to a new country, you probably don't know anybody, you probably know very few people. You're going to have to learn and relearn a lot of things. And so it's a decision that is not one you take in a hurry. You have to really think about it. So like I've said, the reason why people leave, better economic opportunities. Some people escape, they flee religious, political persecution. In the 40s, the 1940s, a lot of Jews left Germany because of the Holocaust and migrated to the US. So people live for different reasons. Some people, it could be health. Either you have a member of your family who is battling some health crisis that maybe the medical infrastructure in your domestic country can't handle it, and so you've got to move. So people move for so many reasons. But it's a decision, like I said, you have to take so many things into consideration. So we're going to look at some of the factors. We're going to look at, I'm going to share my personal experience. I'm sure that by the grace of God, some people can learn from it. And then, for me, one of the most important things you need to take into consideration is you've got to commit it to God. Because you're going into a place you really don't know anyone. Much of what you think is existing may be very different from what you have in mind. And so it's only God who can order your steps. It's only God who can bless the work of your hand. It's only God who can bring people who will be of benefit to you. It's only God who can protect you from all the things you're going to meet. I mean, we hear of shootings in America and all that. Nobody wants to escape, leave Nigeria and get into America and get killed, or get into the UK and you have a knife incident, or get into Canada, all kinds of things. You really don't want to do that. You're going there because you're looking for better opportunities. You don't want to get killed there. So it's only God who can make all of that soften, and make crooked paths straight. So you've got to commit that to God, because you really don't know. I mean, from my experience, most of the things that I thought were sorted out was completely new. So you have to commit it to God. And until you get that affirmation from God, sometimes you may be living where you would do better, to where you definitely may not have that dream. So not everybody who goes there gets that dream opportunity that they talk about. Now, the other factor is age. It's easier for younger people to blend in than it is for older people. The reason is simple. Now, for someone who is older, you have to do a lot of relearning, right? You've got to learn so many things, and you've got to relearn some of the things you already think you know. So for young people, it's a lot easier for them to get in. I'll share my personal experience. So many of us didn't go to a driving school to learn how to drive. You probably had an opportunity where your dad had a car. Your dad tells you, watch the car, and then every morning you go. You know this is the gear. You put the key, shift the car, and then before you know, your friends tell you, look, if you put it this way, you try it, it works. And then the next time you say, look, let me just reverse a little and move it forward. You do that. The next time you decide, let me hit the road. You're lucky to come back alive. And then you started driving. No knowledge of road signs, no knowledge of regulations. You just try it. Luckily for us, our roads are pretty simple. No road signs. One way from Blackie to VI. You get to the roundabout, there's no road sign, no yield, nothing. So you continue that way. I know how to drive. And luckily, you really know how to drive. So you get into a new country. They tell you, okay, if you have a driver's license from your home country, you are allowed to continue to drive for 6 months. You may be lucky, you get in. So you get in, and then after 6 months, you can't continue to drive. You need to get a new driver's license. To get a new driver's license, you need to do a test that, seeks to, ensure that you understand the whole concept of road signs. You yield for a car on the roundabout, all of that. So you do that. Then you do practical tests. There's speed limits that you must observe. Yeah. If you like, you do 120 if the road allows. All of these things, they have speed signs. So you continue. So I was lucky, got in, did the exam, I passed, first trial. I did the road, this thing. Of course, I don't speed. I passed. And then on one of these particular occasions, as I was about to turn, there's a small sign that says yield on green. It's green, but the other person has the right of way. So I went in, and I almost had an accident. So that's the way it is. You've got to learn. I mean, in places like Canada, it's a lot more difficult because they're a lot stricter and all that. In the UK, for instance, they use the left hand while we use the right hand. So you're going to have to learn all of those things. That's just a practical example of just one bit of the things you've got to learn. So you do that. So it's easier for someone who is young, who hasn't even started driving, who doesn't have a certain notion of how things are done to fit into their system. For an older person, the older you become, the more difficult it is for you to learn. And then the more difficult it is for you to relearn what you think you already know. So, easier for young people. Second, marital status. It's easier for people who are single to migrate than people who have families, right? One of the things I tell people is don't, as much as possible, don't go into any other country as an illegal immigrant. Don't go in as an illegal alien. Because at the end of the day, you don't have papers to work. There are so many restrictions. There are so many things that can go wrong. What you seek to get, you may not get it. So as much as possible, if you can get in legally, it makes sense. Easiest way, maybe you are a student migrating into another country. From there are pathways to stay permanently or to become a citizen of that country. For younger people who decide, look, I'm just going to go in with a visitor's visa and wangle my way. For someone who is not married, it's a lot easier because you can get in. One of the easiest ways to become a legal citizen of a country is through marriage. So you may be lucky, get someone who that you fall in love with, and get married, and through that, you might get citizen. For people who are married who do that, there have been stories of woes. Because first of all, when you get in with your family, you have your wife, you have your children. You are not just an illegal alien. Your children are. Your wife is. So the things you can get away with it, you may be a lot more careful. Your children may not be. Your wife may not. And so I've heard stories of people who go in. After a while, when you realize that you run out of status and you need to work, you arrange for your wife. First of all, you have to divorce your wife to marry someone new. Your wife will have to divorce you, whichever way. Get into a relationship. Act as if you're married to the new person. I've heard stories of where maybe at the point of going to interview, the new guy says, oh, your wife is supposed to be my wife. And then you have stories of, he insists that, look, if I don't, have something to do with her, it's not going to work. I've heard cases. I've heard of a pastor who actually told the wife that, look, we are stuck here, and if you don't do it, we will be sent home. And at the end of the day, under pressure, he gave way. But that marriage will break up. It definitely will break up. There's no way. How do you look your wife in the face and make such a suggestion? But that's what happens for a lot of people who put themselves in those difficult positions. And you get to a point where you don't want to go back home, you're stuck. You have to do something desperate, and then you begin to suggest things that you just can't even comprehend. So that's the issue. So you have people that, for instance, who get in, you can't come out, because if you come out, you can't get in again. You have a loss of loved one, you can't travel, you can't go back, you can't. So it's not a place to be. So for every story you hear, maybe in 10 stories, there are 5 people who, or 6 people, or 7 people who, for some reason, are going through hell. I've had cases of even single people who you are going to a contract. Maybe you're really not dating this person, or you don't want to get married to the person. You get into a contract, and they wait for you at the point where you're desperate, you're vulnerable. They begin to suggest all kinds of things. I know of a lady who she got pregnant, gave birth to a child, to someone that for some reason they were never going to get married. She paid money, right? And the person took advantage of her, ended up with a child. Her life will not be the same. So if you hear stories, I know somebody who, he's been in the US for over 20-something years, he can't come back home, right? I have a personal friend who left. He used to work in Zenith Bank. He left, went into New York with his family, with a visitor's visa, got in. Well, initially when you live here, you may think you have some money, but when you're paying bills in dollars and you're not earning money, and unfortunately, the system is quite different. In the US, for instance, you go to a school within the county, because the county paid taxes. You pay taxes in the counties where you live, and it is those taxes that they use to fund the school system. So it's actually a criminal offense to go to school in a government school in another county, So you must go to school in the county where you live because that's where you pay taxes. And so after a while, because he didn't have money, you stay in a county that is in a poor school district. Poor school district means that those schools are not properly funded. So at the end of the day, went into New York, paid $2,500 rent on a monthly basis. After a while, he couldn't pay. He had to move to the projects. Projects are like slums in Nigeria. They are like the Ajegules of this world. And this is someone who worked in Zenith, had more like a middle-class life here. So technically what it meant was that the children had to go to school within the slums. From there, picked up all kinds of behaviors. Before you knew what was happening, the daughter got pregnant. The son at 18 woke up and said he wasn't going to school again. Went into drugs. Of course, because you mix with the kids within the neighborhood. From there, the wife, of course, you relate with people within the wife woke up and before the marriage broke up. And so he technically lost everything. And so became a cab man in New York. And when I saw him, he said, look, Theo, this really wasn't what I bargained for. I wish I had not listened to the people who kept telling me, look, I should just stay. Because that's what happened. Most people go with a visitor's visa, and then you meet Nigerians who are over there. And they tell you, look, just stay. Why are you going back to Nigeria? Nigeria is and some people listen to people without making adequate arrangements, and they stay back. And so at the end of the day, you're out of status, you start dealing with the real life issues. Most of the people that maybe probably told you to stay, of course, they have their own lives. They have things to do. They're not going to pay your bills. And so that's the story for a lot of people, especially people who just live with their families. And then you now subject your children innocently who are not part of that, who are, just don't know how you took that decision, to all kinds of conditions. So you actually have to take into consideration your family setting and prepare well for it. So you don't just jump into a plane illegally and go into another country and say, look, I'm going to stay. It's going to be a nasty experience. And if people are honest, they will tell other people that. So the other factor is your economic status back here. It's easier for people at the lower income bracket to migrate and really enjoy the benefit of migration. The reason why I say that is simple. I'll give you a practical instance. A plumber. If you have an issue in your home, and for instance, you need a plumber to come fix it, for the plumber to come and just assess the situation, in places like America, is just $100. For him to just come and look at it and say, oh, this is what the problem is. He's not fixing it. So you pay him $100. Fixing it is a different ballgame. So Uber drivers, people at the lower income level that we take for granted here, that's the truth. I mean, somebody comes to do something for you, $5,000. We bargain, $10,000. Over there, $100 just to check the problem. So in some way, the hairdresser, right? And when we first got in there and my daughters needed to make their hair, my wife said for each of them it was $200. And I'm like, wait a minute. The first thing I did was to convert it. And that's what happens when you earn money in Naira and you have to convert to dollars. So I did a conversion and I said, look, what are we talking about? Exchange rate then was about 500 Naira to $1. I said, we're talking about 100,000 Naira to make one person. Right? And I have 4 daughters. Right? So I'm like, what have I gotten myself into? But in a nutshell, the hairdresser that comes to your house that makes your hair for 5,000, 10,000, 15,000 is well paid in the US. Because if she's able to do 5 hairs for people in a day, she's earning $1,000. $1,000 here is 800,000 Naira by now, given the current exchange rate. So, you see, at that income bracket, they'll be well off. So, an hairdresser will come to your house, pack a brand new Camry, come in, make the enter a car, and go. That's the point. The plumber, the electrician, the skilled people, yes, very important. So at that level, definitely they will enjoy the benefit of immigration. Now, flip it the other way. You're here, you have an international chef, you have 2, 3 nannies, you have a driver who comes, you probably have somebody who carries your bag when you move around. And then you live in a highbrow neighborhood, maybe Banana Island, maybe VGC, maybe shoreline protection. You live in those places. And you hear, oh, Nigeria is getting messed up, there's insecurity in the country, and you decide to carry your things and immigrate. Now, first of all, the land use charge in my house in VGC is 30-something thousand naira. 30-something thousand naira is less than $100. Right. Your taxes on your property in the US, let's take on average $1 million home in the US, is minimum, depending on the neighborhood, $15,000 per annum. Minimum. That's it. If you don't pay it in 1 or 2 months, the county will come. They'll give you notice. If you don't, they'll sell your house to recover their money. That's the simple truth. I have Nigerians who have bought houses. They think it's Nigeria where you just buy a house and keep it, and you don't pay taxes on the house. Lagos State will come. Worst case they will do, after 1 year, they'll pay something there, and you make a phone call or you tear it. In North America or anywhere in advanced country, they'll clean you out. So we had this guy from Bayelsa, bought a nice home in Atlanta for $2 million, left it there. Locks it, comes in once in a while. They gave him the first notice, he ignored it. Gave him the second notice, he ignored it. Third, he ignored it. By the 4th month, his agent called him and told him, look, you're already in court to foreclose your house for what you're owing the county. And he said, look, I don't understand. What are they talking about? My $2 million home, they want to take it because of. The guy told him, look, if you don't pay that, in fact, at this point, you have to just find a way to pay somebody to go there and bid for that property, or else you're going to lose it. Simple. So that's one bit. The second bit is, so you probably live here, your kids go to Green Spring, or they go to Day Waterman, or they go to American International School. Green Spring, maybe you're paying 1 million, 2 million max. And you decide that you're migrating, you get there. Most likely, and this is the point, everywhere in the world, anything that is free is not as good as what is paid for. That's the truth. In fact, in the West, because of standardization and all that, it's like that. So if you stay in and the thing is, they tell you, what they tell you is that the public school system in America, in Canada and all that is free. So my children can go to school free. Yes, true. But this is the catch. Most of the schools that are extremely good that are public school are in the neighborhoods where people pay enough they pay enough property tax to fund those schools. So for you to be able to send your kids to public schools that are so good and at the standard where the private schools your children were attending here are, then you have to stay in a neighborhood where the property tax is enough to fund those schools. What it therefore means is that you probably have to stay in $1 million home or in a neighborhood that is within that range. So even if you're not paying the school fees, you're paying the taxes on your home, right? So it's both ways. Or you get there and find out that, look, for instance, in our case, you get there, find out that, look, when you went to the public school, remember in public schools, they don't wear uniform. In places like America, Canada, and all that, there's some form of freedom when it comes to what they teach them. Marriage is defined differently. It's defined as it could be between a man and a woman, or a man and a man, and all that. So, and you just don't want that. So what most people do is you either send your kids to Catholic schools or private schools where you're sure of some form of discipline. And then in the process, you find out that those private schools that you're sending your kids to maybe in the region of $15,000, $20,000 per annum. Convert that to Naira and convert what you were paying here. So you find out that, look, it just doesn't make sense, right? And so what I tell people is that when it comes to the primary, secondary, our system, it's not really that, it's not bad. I mean, if your kids are going to the likes of Green Springs, the likes of Middle Hall, they're going to some of those kind of schools. I have a friend who went to Canada, right? The wife went as a student. And when they went, they said, look, the schools that my kids are attending, they're not as good as the Middle Hall that my kids were attending in Nigeria. So technically, your kids are retrogressing, right? So at the end of the day, those are things you have to take into consideration when you're moving, especially at that level, except you have the means to be able to afford it. Now, when you go to the area of saying you want to get a chef, you want to get a maid, you get all that, forget it. Forget it. You have to be extremely rich to be able to afford that because they are well paid. That's another thing. Now, for people who migrate with family and you have young kids, especially, I had someone who used to work for me and left to the UK. And when he was leaving, I said, look, I know your income level here. If you are a student, why don't you go test the waters, probably work, and then earn some money, settle in a leisure before you move your family. For some reason, he didn't listen. So he moved his wife, his 3-month-old baby, and his son, moved them to the UK as a student. I knew what would happen. So when he got there, within the first 1 month, he gave me a call that he needed a loan. I said, a loan of how much? He said $5,000 or $3,000 or whatever. I said, for what? So when he got into the UK, he found out that, look, the wife can't work, right? So in the West, they call it marital income. So if you work and your wife works, it makes it easier. You guys can add your both income and pay. But if your wife has a 2-month-old baby or a 3-month-old baby, she can't work. You can't afford to pay for a nanny. It's just not possible. How much is your wife going to earn to be able to afford to leave the baby with a nanny? So that's just not going to be possible. So she can't work. In places like America, you cannot leave a minor with a minor. It's not possible. You have to leave a minor with an adult. So if your child is within that age, either your wife has to stay at home to take care of the children and you would work. There have been cases where, I know of a particular case in Florida, where they tried to find a way around it. They stayed in a neighborhood where there was a pool. So when the man goes to work, the wife will lock the kids at home and go to work. For some reason, on a particular day, they failed to close the back door. And by the time they came back, they made their 2 kids drown on the pool. The husband didn't know the wife left. After he left, came back, found his 2 children in the pool. Family can never be the same. So these are, people struggle with all kinds of things. Here, you could easily get a nanny. You can get your mother. You can get your grandmother. You can get people to come stay with the kids and work. But over there, it's just not possible. And living here, you can't live with your parents or that social family structure that provides buffer for a lot of people here. It's almost non-existent. So those are the factors that you also need to take into consideration when you're making such moves, Then the other, I've talked about the legal status, I've talked about, then the other is the financial aspect. It's very different here in the sense that in the US and Canada, there's what they call the FICO score. FICO is named after Fair Isaac Corporation, which is like a pioneer company when it comes to gathering information to award credit scores to people. So our banking system in Nigeria is quite different. So you walk into a bank and you bring in maybe 10 million naira or 50 million naira, and they run around and they worship you. The whole idea is you have money. Now, in the US and many places in North America, that's not how they look at things. The economy works based on credit. So much of what you get is based on your credit score. Because And rightly so. They believe that it is easier to have money. Right? So someone without character can have money. But to be able to take a credit and pay back, and to be able to also live within your credit requires discipline and character. So you have a credit card, let's say of $30,000. Now, it is part of what accounts for your FICO score is that you must not go beyond 30% usage on your credit card, which means that you're living within credit. If you go beyond that, it means you're living on credit. You're living dangerously. That's one. Two, some people can take that credit and not pay back. So your ability to repay is key. Unlike here, a lot of the rich people you see around take money from the bank and never pay. Many. I worked in the bank. 80% of the bad loans you see in Nigerian banks are loans taken by people we consider extremely rich in society, who basically go to the banks, take money without any intention to pay. And the legal structure of the system encourages them because you, for some reason, can't take them anywhere. And they go to another bank and do the same thing. It is not possible in the West. The moment you default on credit, it will affect your credit score, you get blacklisted, and ultimately you go into bankruptcy. So it's not possible. So the system is based on character. So you can see someone who is not as wealthy as you are, who has lived within credit, takes money from the bank, pays regularly, having a credit score. Credit score is normally between 300 to 850 or thereabout, where 850 is the highest. 850, if you have a credit score at that range, you can actually walk into a car dealership, take a car, right, with maybe $2,000, depending, no matter what the car is, pay $2,000, $5,000, drive away with almost no interest. So your interest rate depends on your credit score to a large extent. So if you have a high credit score, you pay a very low interest, because what it means is that you're low risk. If you have a very low credit score, you're very high risk. So your interest rate will be very high. That's if you get the loan at all, because the system is based on credit. So I got into America and I want to buy a car and I wanted to go pay cash. And people say, oh, come on, you need to start building your credit. So here, I would think that, oh, it's a good thing. People would think that you have money when you walk into a car room and pay cash. No. It just doesn't tell well. In fact, people will start wondering whether, look, what is this guy into? That you walk into. And the thing is, even for properties, most people who have homes pay 10%, 20%. They are on mortgage. They pay it on a monthly basis. So you have to get a job. The same thing with car. So a lot of young ladies see people here, and maybe you see pictures, you see somebody with a big house or a big car and all that. It's credit. He didn't pay cash. If he loses his job 1, 2, 3, 4 months, there might be a foreclosure on both the car and many other things. So it's credit. Unlike here that you probably have a house and you paid cash. You have a car, you paid cash, and all that. That's not how the system works. It's completely different. Most things are based on credit. You just pay small and pay the rest over time. So for me, I would tell people is before you migrate, just look at the factors. Look at some of the factors that I've mentioned. You may actually be better off here. That's the truth. Nigeria is not... Yeah, economic conditions are worsening. Agreed. See, when we talk about light and all that, yes, the people who have 24 hours power here, right? When we talk about education, our educational system, at the university level, it is bad. But at the primary and secondary level, it is, I can tell you, it's as good as you can find in many places. It may not be at the very top, but it is as good as you can find in a lot of places. And the reason for our educational system, especially the public educational system in the university, the reason why it is what it is basically because it's underfunded. Nowhere in the world would a medical doctor pay school fees of 50,000 naira or 60,000 or 100,000 naira in a year. Nowhere. In the US, you have to take a student loan. To train a typical medical doctor in the US is within average $300,000 minimum. So to take a student loan, it's not a big deal. Even kids of rich people go to school, they take student loans, and they go to school. They pay. So in the US, for instance, a public system, free lower school, free middle school, and then when you get to college, you pay. Because it is believed that by the time you do middle, lower middle, and high school, you are sound as possible to fit into the society. And so that's the point when I hear people say, oh, Mark Zuckerberg dropped out of the university. Bill Gates didn't go to the university. And these people went to, Mark Zuckerberg, for instance, he went to Philip Exeter Academy. That's one of the most expensive and best high schools in the US or anywhere in the world. These schools, they do artificial intelligence, they do all kinds of things. So by the time most of these people left high school, they were as educated as you can ever imagine. So when they say that they dropped out of this thing, they're educated. They're not the dropouts in the real sense of what we're talking about. So I still believe, I mean, look at the Nigerian situation. So you subsidize medical education the way we do here. So technically, the government is subsidizing that. So the medical doctor graduates from the university. And then the next moment, he leaves. The country does not enjoy the benefit of that subsidy. He goes to America. He does his residency, gets a job. His colleague that went to school in America is carrying a student loan of almost $300,000 deficit. The guy from Nigeria that has been subsidized by government walks into America with no student loan. Because the whole idea of the subsidy was that government should enjoy the benefit of that service. And that's why they're subsidizing it. Because nothing is really free. If you're not paying, someone is paying. But here you don't pay. You finish the government, you walk away. You get into another system where it's expensive to train doctors. And the other guy is carrying student loan or someone paid through their nose. And it's almost free. So until we do something about our public university system, we will continue to be like, nowhere in the world. I mean, just look at the typical instance. How much you pay for people who are going to do masters in the UK for basic school fees. Look at how much you pay. Last year, or within the last 3 years, look at the number of student visas that the UK issued to Nigerian citizens to go study abroad. Look at we're talking about the UK, look at the US, look at Canada and all that. Look at the amount of foreign exchange that leaves this country on a yearly basis for schools in the US or in the UK or in Canada. And you would think that someone somewhere within the public domain will say, look, let's wait a minute. Let's review it. Government can't continue to fund education. That's the simple truth. Until we get to that point where we realize that, look, nothing is really free, we will continue to be in this situation, unfortunately. But on the lower levels, I think we're good. Because it's privately funded. And so when my kids were here, they were in Green Springs. When they went there, they did really well. So there wasn't much difference. I couldn't in good conscience send them to the public schools that I think were not at the same level as the school they were here, because I would have let them down if I allowed that to happen. So, like I said, you look at all of these factors before you take, because a lot of people over there, if you really talk to people, some would have wanted to come back. I have a friend that the wife went to Canada, eventually they had to come back. I have friends at UK and all that. So I think that at some point, people really need to start hearing the truth before they jump into a plane and get out. So I don't know if there are questions at this point. Do you have time?
Yes.
Do I have time?
Yeah, just
Okay.
answer the questions.
Okay. Okay, there's a question here where we've heard of cases where people go to school and work overseas. The question is, how does it work and which country offers such opportunity? Well, many countries, almost every country in the world. Okay. You see, the truth is, every country in the world, I was listening to a documentary recently, about how immigration is actually hurting the countries that are losing people. And that's the simple truth. Because you see, at the end of the day, no country would take the worst people from any country. That's the truth. All immigration policies of advanced countries are designed to take the very best from other countries. And so you see, the point is, see what is happening in Nigeria. The people who should actually stay and create jobs for other people are leaving. So Canada, the US, will not take people who they are not sure will add value to their system. In fact, the US system is even better when it comes to that area, because at some point they were doing the lottery system, which is not based on who you are. So a plumber can win a lottery. Anybody can win a lottery, right? The other bit is maybe somebody can file for you and all that. The Canadian and the UK system are pretty much designed differently. So you're bringing skills. Like the US, there are different categories of visas. I mean, there are visas for people with exceptional skills. So you're like a professor, you are like a musician of that level where you won Grammys and all that, or you have some special skills. You can immigrate. There are visa classes for those kind of people, right? There are the investors' visas, the EB-5, that you come invest in the US system and create 10 jobs for US citizens. Those are not ordinary people. Those are people who should actually sit back, create jobs for other people. So an immigration system that is designed to take those people away from the countries they are living is actually hurting that country more than it's taking. I mean, look at the medical doctors. Every country in the world wants medical doctors. We're losing ours. And nobody is sitting down to say, okay, look, what should we do about it? And not just that we're losing them, their education was heavily subsidized by government. And there was nothing. When you're done, you leave. You know, so the person that said, how do they do it? Yes. So if you go to school in the US, which is one of the ways I advise people if you want to leave, get a student visa, get to the US or anywhere, study. When you study and you become exceptional, companies can actually look out for you and file for you. I have a lot of people that graduated and companies actually offered them jobs and filed for them. So yes, it's possible. That's one of the easiest ways. So if you get in, you're extremely good, you get hired, the company that hires you can file for you, you know, and make justification to show that, look, you're exceptional, and file for you, and that becomes your pathway to citizenship or residency. So yes, it's possible. So the only reason is, if you get there and you're good, and you get hired, and the company that hires you files for you, then you get permanent residency. If not, most student immigration systems allows you to work for 2 years or thereabout. You know, in that 2 years, it's for them to ensure that either you're able to get a job, that you are able to display special skills where those skills are vital to the economy, and then you get issued permanent residency. So that's how it works. So they give you 2 years. I think the UK changed it before and realized that, look, it's the way to go, because a lot of foreign students come in with exceptional skills, and it's an opportunity for the economy to benefit from those skills. And so they give them first 2 years, you work, and then if you become exceptional, you get hired, they file for you. If not, you're expected to return back home, or except to find another pathway to citizenship, which is most commonly, for a lot of people, marriage, right? So, yes, it's possible to go to school, finish, and then stay back and work, yes. Okay, that's fine. So the second one says, from our talk, skilled workers like plumbers, hairstylists, chefs, etc., are well paid. Can you list out some of the skills that are currently lucrative in America, Europe, and all that? IT skills, medical skills. Those are skills that are required at this moment. So people with exceptional IT skills, medical doctors. I mean, except you're talking about this question, except I don't know if the person is talking about at lower levels, but those are skills that are desired everywhere in the world at the moment. So those are skills that most countries want. So, yeah. Aside America, UK, and Canada, which are the most talked about or most migrated to, are there no other countries where taxes are not that high and the standard of living is more affordable? The reason is, unlike here where we don't pay taxes, the West survive on taxes. So I don't know anywhere in the world, apart from Nigeria and maybe many African countries, where taxes are not high. In fact, they are higher in Canada and the UK and a lot of the other European countries. Because you see, the thing is, your population, the more people that pay taxes, because most infrastructures are funded through taxes, so the more people that pay taxes, the lesser the other people will have to pay. So it's taxes that really fund government. Unlike here where we have to rely on government to do everything. No. In the West, it's taxes. So everywhere I know in the West, you have taxes. Then, not like I am not patriotic or anything of such, but sadly right now, Nigeria does not give room to express the bulk of our talents and skills, hence the reason a lot of young people. You see, I still believe in Nigeria. I don't know. For me, I really can't live. There's so many opportunities in Nigeria. That's the simple truth. Well, at the moment, we will say that things are not going well, yes. But many places in the West, what industries can you make impact? Most industries are already well established, dominated. Almost everywhere in Nigeria, from food and beverages to construction to agriculture, to name it, there are opportunities everywhere that you can make a mark. The truth is, and I'll be honest, for a lot of us, our work ethic is poor. I've worked, I've employed people. The truth is, most Nigerians, when they go abroad, they work 3-4 jobs. But back home, we really don't work. It's a cultural problem. At the end of the day, many of us get hired. We don't even look. The moment you don't earn your pay on a job, you will get fired. That's the simple truth. We worked here, we went to school here. The people that are really serious, that are willing to work, that is one thing. A lot of people get opportunities to work, but they don't really want to work. For the people who get the opportunity and are really serious, I think they are better off here, honestly speaking. That's the simple truth. Because your pathway to rise to the top is faster here. You're not suffering from racial discrimination like what you have in the West. You're not suffering from any of that. The tax system in Nigeria, until the government gets their acts right, it's you technically pay, people don't pay taxes here. You can't do that in the West. Right? You know people. You can easily make a phone call and get things done. You know people that you've gone to school with, you know people that you worked with. You have a lot of social capital that you can draw on that you don't have in the West. So for somebody who grew up in this system, and you see the thing is people who say, oh, there's so much chaos, people, quit complaining about the problem and challenges. Every economic downturn from the Great Depression has ended up with a new set of millionaires and billionaires. Because during crisis, wealth gets distributed without the consent of the rich. On a normal economic situation, the rich will continue getting richer. You need more capital to invest. And so the people who have more capital would likely invest more and earn more money. But in depressions and in economic crises, that system gets altered. Most rich people you've seen today were able to take advantage of that rare moment when wealth had to be distributed or redistributed without the consent of the rich. So you see what is happening today? Great opportunity. Nigeria will not remain like this. And I tell people, no matter what happens, among the 3 candidates that we have today, whichever of them emerges will be better than where we are today. That's the simple truth. Look at Obasanjo's time. Nigerians were inflowing money from abroad to Nigeria to invest in real estate. The stock market was booming. People were making money, the mortgages. That's the time. We won't continue to be like this. In every 5 black people, one is a Nigerian. We have a huge market. We have diversity that, if turned around, can become an advantage for this country. They are discovering oil on almost every nook and cranny in the country. They just discovered oil in Bauchi. The problem we have is not just leadership. It's even the followership. That's the problem. If we do fix our problems, I've been to a few places in the world. Nigeria is not that bad. I've met a white man in the US who told me, look, listen, if you go anywhere and see a black man that is very confident, 80% is most likely a Nigerian. He says he can come there as a security man manning your gate. His desire is to get to the top. He's working during the night and going to school in the day. Within a very short time, he will show up telling you that he has a degree. He will show up telling you he has a master's. He will do that job, do another job, do another job, do another job. So that's what we have as a people that many Africans don't have. That's the simple truth. An average Nigerian wants to work. The problem here is that when reward is not based on merit, that's the problem. You cannot. That's the beauty of capitalism. If you choose to sleep, to work 12 hours, you should get rewarded. If you choose to work for 2 hours, you should get rewarded according to your labor. If you choose to work for 20 hours, you should get rewarded according to your labor. We should put square pegs in square holes and round pegs in square holes. Round pegs in round holes. That's the problem we have. So what is happening is that the worst among us are the ones ruling us. Every sector that you go to, medical, technology, agriculture, name it, Nigerians are doing exploit all over the world. So there can be, there's something wrong. Even white people are wondering. These guys, when they leave their shores, they come here, they're doing so well. How come back home they can't put their acts together? The simple truth is the political and social arrangements. That's why we're where we are. And I keep telling people, for a country to truly emerge, the tribes have to die. No country would emerge if we are still tribal in our thinking, we are tribal in our orientation. In the US, for instance, nobody asks you, are you from Georgia, are you from here? No, nobody talks about it. The worst case it will happen is they'll tell you, where are you originally from? That's what they talk about. But here, we're so tribal in everything. And so even in discourse that it's transparent, you can see it, we still go back to our tribal orientations. And that's the problem. Because that's it. How come Nigerians are doing so well across the world? And back home, we're doing poorly. So the issue would have to be a system that doesn't allow the best of us to emerge among us. See like the UK, for instance. The last 10 prime ministers in the UK, go and check, 8 of them went to Oxford. But here, we're wondering which school did these people go. When they say bring your certificates, people are bringing their schoolmates. So really, we shouldn't wonder why we are where we are. You understand? We just need to get our acts right, and we'll get things done. My brother, thank you so much. Yeah.
Hello.
Okay.
Hello. Praise the Lord. Okay, this person said, schooling abroad, does it guarantee a better living?
Schooling anywhere in the world doesn't guarantee you better living. Nigeria, anywhere in the world. Unfortunately, I came across something that captured where we are. They said in Nigeria, in the US, when you come, they ask you, what can you offer? Right? So you went to school, but bottom line, they want to know what you can offer. You get to the UK, they ask you, which school did you go to? What certificate do you have? If they come to Nigeria, they ask you, who do you know? Right? So, in honesty, going to school abroad doesn't guarantee you anything, anywhere in the world. What guarantees you anything. It's the skills you acquired in that school, your attitude to life, so important. An average person who probably made a third class or a second class lower with the right attitude can excel. Unfortunately, because if you're humble, most people want to assist you, even when you don't know. Your attitude to, I want to know, I want to learn, I'm ready to assist others, I am open to learning and all that. Those things guarantee you a lot much more than coming with a first class. I have a colleague that we went to school with. We graduated together. He made a first class, but he goes to a gathering. He wants everybody to know he made a first class. He's arrogant and all that. He's been out of job for the last 6 years. Right? He speaks the best of English. He's arrogant. He tells you everything. Yeah. I know people who made a third class and own companies. Right? So bottom line is your skills, your attitude, so important. Your attitude. Some people want the whole world to know they are there. So your attitude is key. So education abroad doesn't guarantee you anything, or anywhere in the world.
Thank you, sir. Yeah. When you make your money in your country, can you start business when you migrate?
Oh, definitely. In fact, there's a US program called EB5, right? The EB5 program is designed for foreigners who want to invest in the US economy. So you get into the US. From here, it used to be $500,000. So you can partner with people to set up a company in the US, employ people, right? Find what industry you want to get into, food, technology, financial services, anywhere. Get in. You can partner with people. If you have enough resources, you can start it alone. And look, they will give you permanent residency. And when you get in, you can employ people, and your life continues from there. So yes, you can make money in your own country. And no country in the world doesn't want money or investment coming into their country. Right.
Thank you very much, sir.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Now, sir, we are in church, and we tend to come here, pray together. We talk about having faith for whatever you want to achieve and the rest like that. Now, because going through the talk is just like we telling ourselves, like, the dangers, the things you need to know if you go to that place for you to be right, or whether you should not even go at all or you should stay back in Nigeria. Where is the role of the prayers, the faith, the thing? Like, if I go to the UK, even the prime minister like me will know that I've arrived. Because I won't give up. I'll have to get myself together. So, are we saying, don't go?
No, what we're saying is, when I started, I said, look, before you even go, pray to God. I talked about Abraham. I am 100% certain for God to have instructed Abraham to leave his own country to another country that will build him a great nation. It meant God realized that Abraham would not be able to achieve the objective God had for him if he stayed where he was supposed to stay. Right? So God asked him, you've got to leave your people, leave your country to a new country, and I'll build you a great nation. Right? Good. So definitely, some people will do better, excel, blossom in other countries. But how do you know, right, that you're not living where you will blossom to another country where you may not achieve the same feat? The only way is by asking God for guidance, right? Because it's like you're living somewhere that you're going somewhere you really don't know anything. And the only person who knows the future is God, right? So it may be that it is better for you to stay back home, and whatever you thought you wanted to go achieve, you can achieve it back here. Or some people, it may be better that you go. Your skills may be better required there. So, but no man can tell you that. It's only God. So you only have to commit that to God and to wait for God to, yeah.
Thank you very much, sir. Another thing is, the Bible says, wherever the sole of your feet shall step on, shall tread on, the Lord will give it to you. On the premise of you listening to God, say, God, should I go to the UK? I desire to do this. Should I do it or I should not do it? Now, getting there, because if we talk about the rigors, the blending over there and everything, some of us, if not most, we have people over there. Is either they are lying to us about what is going on there because of the pictures, the Facebook, the Instagram, all the physics over there. And here we are. They say, all die and I die. See, the death will not kill you for this place. You say, hey, they are shooting them over there. They shoot here too. For this express. It's kind of, if you want to take a bus, you have to pray. You have to say, Father, this bus I want to enter. Kidnappers will not take me anywhere. We've been seeing different things, one chance and everything. Just by VGC bus stop here. Somebody boarded a bus and gave an account. I was shocked. Because sometimes I leave the car and I decide to just take a bus. I was like, just to go to Lekki here. And all this is happening. So over there, even if somebody is going to shoot, they have better equipment, better CCTV and all this thing. They will catch the person later. But I'm very sure I'm not going to be part of the people they will shoot over there. But the truth is, people desire better life. Hence, the migration. I desire something better. I feel I should get something better. Now, I'm here. To do business, to even collect a form in an office, everything is political. If it's not political, it's tribal. If it's not tribal, it is who you know. Things can't just go like straight. I want a form to fill in this hospital. They will be asking you for different kinds of bribes and everything. To shock you, we're supposed to take death certificate for a dead person in a teaching hospital right here in Lagos. And the staff there, they're actually asking for bribe for person who die. As in, mortuary, the same thing. They wanted something, everybody wanted something for you to just move forward. And you're like, hello, he don't die. Sure, you go collect the money for your hand. That's what I told them that day. I said, the man don't die. You won't collect money for the dead man's hand. So what we are saying is we want a better platform, a better education. If somebody schools abroad, at least while I was searching for a job after years of graduation and everything, we found out that the people that schooled abroad, when we come at par, like we are seeking for the same post, they get preferential treatment from the employers before we that schooled in Nigeria. And God help you, don't school in your village school like me. So it is somehow, now, I want to have my master's in Canada. I just want to do it. That's what I desire. God, I desire it. Must I hear? God will say, my son, my son, my son. I don't hear your prayer. Pack your load. Come on, Japa.
Okay, you see the thing is, the likes of Philip Emeagwali, who invented the fastest, they left from here. I'm sure that he probably, if he didn't leave the shores of Nigeria, he probably would not have been able to make that fit, right? Because he had access to better infrastructure, probably quality education, and all that. There are a lot of Nigerians like that in different fields of human endeavor who have done extremely well abroad, right? What I'm saying is, you see, the thing is, if God goes with you, right? This is the point. It's going to bring people your way that will smoothen your path, right? He is going to order your steps in such a way that you won't walk into evil. In the US, for instance, we've had a lot of people who they go into a mall, open, and start killing people, right? Or they go into a school and start shooting children, right? Those things happen. What I'm saying is, look, you can go abroad and study, which is good because you get opportunity, maybe in a different environment. Exposure is also a form of education. So there's nothing wrong with it. But the point is you have to actually know what you're going. Because you see, there are a lot of Nigerians who have gone abroad and have lost it. So many. There are many who have gone abroad and are doing extremely well. Right? So if you ask me, the difference is who is blessed, right? Who has also done his own bit, right? So if you want to go, because you mentioned something like when people come here and they have degrees from foreign universities, they tend to be considered, maybe for a while. At the point of entry, they might ask you, okay, you went to Ekpoma. This one went to some university in the UK, right? let's say in the field of IT, because these are fields where beyond your certificate, you've got to do the work, you've got to display that you know it. So you start. And remember, it's not the beginning, it's the end. Because when he gets in, came from some fancy university, you came from Ekpoma. Elumelu went to Ekpoma. He's employing Harvard graduates, sacking them. There are people who have gone to Oxford. He's firing them. He wire you. If the English that you are speaking does not translate into results, he will fire you. Right? Dangote probably never went to any of the places we're talking about. You understand? So at the end of the day, like I said, it is he who is blessed. Right? And then in addition, like I said, if you have the opportunity, you do it. But do it rightly. Right.
Thank you very much, sir. Can we give a round of applause to our speaker? God bless you, sir. We really appreciate you, sir. Thank you, sir.